I'm back. Let me know if the audio is fixed. I'm still seeing a bit in the video lag, and I don't know if that's just normal now for this. But let me know if the audio is still lagging behind. I do strongly apologize for that. Is it still lagging behind, or is it still good? Is it okay now? I hope it's fine. Two. Still lagging. Are you for real? Oh. Plato's if you don't have a problem. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. But that bugs me now. I don't know why that is. I just won't look at you. Look at the cards. That'll. Oh man, I'm gonna stream for like 5.5 more hours, and if it's still laggy like this, that's a. Okay. Well, then I do apologize for all of this. I hope it's not something that gets too bad. Settings in OBS. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to when I take a break, I'll have to look at this. I'll have to like go offline, then come back online for my break. But this is really weird that because I didn't change any outputs. There's nothing changed, so I don't know why it's doing that. You asked Benny again about what? Is he experiencing lag? That's really weird. He's down to commentate the playoffs. Yes. Oh, that is awesome. Oh, that's so cool. I am so ready to sit with Benny and commentate on the playoff games. That's going to be amazing. But anyway, guys, let's get back to these cards because we have a lot to talk about today. Suntop Monastery. Now, obviously, this one changed in the way that it's not a permanent buff. It now has 4 clinking corners, which is okay. They're doing with that with a lot of the permanent buffs out there, especially the ones in Storm. So giving them clunky corners means that they only have a finite number that they can do, which is awesome. They made all of the Abyss package clunky corners, which were a really big thing for permanent buffs. Now they're doing it to a lot of the other ones too, which is a great step forward to make it so that the permanent buffs are not like the soul buffs that are dangerous out there. They all stay out there for a few turns. Really helps people cycle through their decks, gives them good turns, but not infinite value off of it. So really happy to see that Suntop Monastery didn't really change. It's just it only works for 4 corners instead of like 6, 8, 10 the entire game, however you want to do it. I think Suntop Monastery will actually still find a place. I think it'll still find a place in the game, and it's not bad. It's not bad. We're getting a lot of really fun utility cards to make it so the top card is always going to be something really fun with Lunar too. So I think Suntop Monastery is actually going to see a lot of fun to do in that regard. So can't wait to see what this card brings out. Now Eclipse. Eclipse lost 1 healing. That's really it. Went from 10 healing down to 9 healing. They still moved 2 action attack cards to their deck. Still the same payment. It's all good. It's all good. Ursa. Draw 1 card face up. If it's not astral, deal 2 damage to your target. This can't be increased by effects. Now, I believe Ursa was if it's lunar, you heal for 1. I might be completely wrong on that. I could be completely wrong on that. Yep, no, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. If you draw 1 card face up and it's lunar, you heal for 1. So having Ursa now be one of those heroes that you almost want to splash cross order into so you can get a good use out of her hero ability could be really cool. Now, it still does work. It still does work with unaligned cards with her, which is good to know. But as she is supremacy in lunar, Lunar's the one order in Astral that you really want to splash into other orders. She might be the one hero that you start equipping items to and really try to build a cross-order deck out of, just for her ability of drawing a card face up and dealing that extra little bit of 2 damage. So I think Ursa could be really fun to play around with. She also lost one little bit of health. But that's fine. I mean, she still looks like a really fun hero to do. She's able to draw a card, which is probably why they gave her a health loss. A 30 unaligned card, Ursa's Let's Go. Terror Shock, you do it, man. You make the full unaligned deck with Ursa. Combos galore and everything. Valbrew Hacks. Now this one, I don't know to really say this one got a nerf or a buff. Because it did get, it now has 2 clunky corners instead of the 1. You have to wait an additional turn before it gets there. But you don't draw a card when it expires. So there's a lot that changed about this card, and I'm trying to figure out whether it was a buff or a nerf. Because the draw card was really beneficial, but instead it stops your opponent from healing twice, which could be like game ending in the first place rather than drawing you a card, is to stop 2 of their heals. Now, this is probably not the best against nature, as nature's going to heal for like 2, then 2, and it goes away, as opposed to if you go someone against like storm or mountain, where they're healing for like upwards of 6 on a swing. So I don't know. I'm okay with the change they made to it. It's now a poison buff that'll stay out there longer, give you more benefit to what it's doing, be more of a detriment if your opponent really wants to heal twice as opposed to just your next heal. So 2 healing could be very detrimental, especially if the poison damage, if it bypasses damage reduction. So when they heal, they don't heal behind a wall. Valbrew Hacks, I like the change. I think it's fine. I do miss the draw card when it expires, though. I really like that aspect of Valbrew Hexer. But just making my opponent not essentially be able to heal for twice could be almost the same benefit. So I like Hexer. Now, Breach the Veil. Increased damage done by 1. I think that's still fine. It was like essentially a power is 1. Reduce your healing received by 2. So Breach the Veil now has a nerf to it to make it not like the be-all, end-all of these cards. So that when we are allowed to use Breach the Veil again, it's not always like, yeah, we're always going to include this combo because it's a nuts combo. It is the be-all, end-all of Dread, aside from the other 4 cost, which was just unbearably powerful, which I'm still waiting on seeing what that nerf is. I can't think of the name right now. Gonna go look it up real quick. Ritual of Awakening. As soon as we see what's happening to Ritual of Awakening, then I'll be fine. But Breach the Veil, I'm okay with the change. I think Breach is fine, but maybe they should add a defend ability that removes, that lets you remove it. Well, that's the thing. Like, with Breach the Veil up, having that constant drawback of healing is fine. You are getting so much value out of it, though. Like, your damage is increased off of every one of your buffs, which in Dread is a lot of damage. And then whenever you play a card, you draw a card. So you are eventually going to overwhelm your opponent. That, yes, it reduces your healing by 2, where your opponent has a chance to match that race, but they're going to run out of resources at a slower rate than you are, that if you put Breach the Veil down, you will steamroll your opponent if they don't have an answer to it. It just gives it so if you reduce your healing by 2, your opponent has somewhat of a way to try and just, okay, he can't heal, let's push damage as fast as we can too. It is a nerf to give your opponent a better chance, but back before, when you slammed Breach the Veil down and your opponent didn't have an answer, you just won in 3 turns. There was nothing they could do. It was so strong and so potent that when Breach the Veil comes down, also it increased the damage by 2. So the damage is increased by 1 instead of 2. But still, when you play a card drawing a card, that's just so strong. But yeah, Breach the Veil is now like, hey, this card is down. My engines are started. You have a chance to keep pace with me, but I will get so much value out of my deck than you will, that unless you remove the buff, eventually it's just going to kill you. Fallen Guardian. Now, Fallen Guardian, all they did was move the corner from here to here, which I like that change. I do like the change where it's not you have to wait 2 turns. A lot of buffs out there are starting to be like you get one in the middle, then you get one at the end to kind of balance out how spiky the turn is or how much you have to wait for the buff to actually do anything. That I like to change to Fallen Guardian that it's here instead of here, especially with the damage reduction on it too. So you get, rest, then 1 turn of damage reduction, then another turn of damage reduction off of 2 damage as well. I like to change to Fallen Guardian. I think it'll help not really balance out the card. It'll just help change the card in the way that it's played, where you don't have to anticipate 2 turns until damage reduction comes. There is like an open window for your opponent to react to it. So I like that. Now, Serena, she looks very similar. So I'm going to have to actually look and see what her change was. Oh, okay. So her health got increased. Her health got increased, and her ability can be increased. Wait. I don't know why that was on there. I don't know why the last one says this cannot be increased by effects. It's not doing damage. It's increasing damage by 1. So I don't know how this one could have been increased. Maybe through power when the original set came out, when power was still a thing. But yeah, she got a health increase. And that's really it. Which is awesome because like having Serena's ability to increase the damage that she takes. Yeah, the alchemy and hacks and all that stuff. Yeah, you're probably right. Now that she has a larger health pool, the damage that she is gonna take is probably gonna help counteract it to make her a more viable hero to run now as soon as you have four more buffs in play. I like the change. I think she did needed a little bit of boost in the health because if she was increasing the health she was taking, she would have to survive long enough to dish it out, which probably is what slowed a lot of her play style down when people were playing her. This is a wave 2 card though. Was power in wave 2. The original power, I want to say that it was. Original power was in wave 2. And then it got changed shortly after before wave 3. Yeah, power was literally it increased every numerical value on the card. Which is weird because this would if like you had power of 1, this would now say if you have 5 or more buffs, increase it by 2. Like it would increase every numerical value on a card. On the corner, in the text, everywhere there was a numerical value that could be increased, it increased it. So drawing cards was just super, super nuts. It started to get out of hand. It really did. Plaguebringer now actually deals damage to your target, and like because this is 0 and 1, the 0 can be increased. So you put it down, deals 1 damage, then 2 damage. So Plaguebringer actually got a buff. It wasn't changed, it just got more stuff added onto it. And Plaguebringer I actually thought was already a really fun tech card to make it so your opponent couldn't take more than 1 action for 2 turns. Now you're also dealing damage to him. I don't necessarily know if they needed to add that onto it, but I appreciate the fact that they did. It means this card can be a lot more damage inducing on a lot of its things, and with if you run it in things like with Serena, it'll be your 4th buff, so it comes in, it deals damage, then it deals 2 damage. But yeah, I mean, I thought Plaguebringer already had a really nice spot in Dread the way it was. The fact that it's dealing damage now is just a bonus. Kudos to that. Now, Smouldering Bruiser, that got a major increase, as if your target has 20 or more health, it reduces their healing. So it's like, hey, you're already at high health, I'm bypassing damage reduction, but I'm also reducing your healing near the start of the game as well. Which is awesome. I don't think this card has actually seen a whole lot of play, because, I mean, let's face it, Mountain was already doing a lot of spike damage. It was killing you so fast that your opponent didn't really have a chance to defend itself. So Smouldering Bruiser now having a little bit of extra kick to it in certain circumstances, I think was a great choice to do. There's going to be a lot of cards for me to print for proxy. Cecilia, right? It's going to be nuts. Just draw them instead. There you go, TS. Now, Exterior Fabricator. I want to say, was this one healing the first iteration? Because this has got to be the second iteration now, right? Because I do remember that it was like healing and then damage and you can restart it. And now it's just damage reduction. and damage. Which, personally, is a much better change, because this would have just been an insane healing buff that would have just kept you alive for so many turns, would have got you so much value, that damage reduction on this corner, I think, is great. I think it's great to have, and then just damage with an increase to it equal to locations. Still great. I still think Exterior Fabricator is going to be a very strong card in those location style decks that we're going to see with Edda and maybe even Howlock. I don't know. But I do like Exterior Fabricator. I do think that the change from healing to just damage reduction for that one turn is a much nicer change to not make this card so overpowered that it's still usable in the fact that you really want to just get that constant recursion of damage over the 3 turns, but it's not just going to like keep you healing. Because like, think about it, if you restarted Enchanted Soil and just kept that restarting, that would be nuts. That would incline to stall gameplay. So I do like the fact that it's damage reduction and not healing. I do like that. Just buy cards from another TG and write Lunar Shrieker on it with marker. There you go. Second corner, endless. Well, you can only restart it on the 4th corner. You can't restart it on the 2nd corner. At least that's how I'm reading the card, is that the 4th corner is the only place you can restart it. Unless I'm reading it wrong, and it's you can restart it whenever you lay a location buff. Yeah, all you got to do is have a giant text document next to you, Casilia. So you just write the name of the card, and then you can flip through the giant pamphlet of card text. That's all you got to do. Or, as Fatal Zephyr said, just memorize every card in the game. Stubborn Everrock. How? Oh, okay. Okay, because I never used this card a whole lot. I wasn't into those like big OTK stall out games. Stubborn Everrock. Now you have to wait a turn. The corner of which it does it is moved to a turn, so you have to time it appropriately, and your opponent has a chance to remove it. All that stuff. So Stubborn Everrock doesn't just come down and it's the next turn; it just stays there. I think that's a good change. That's, in my opinion, a good change. You have to really line up your turns with these buffs, instead of just putting it down and getting it the next turn. I don't think it was unnecessary, but I do like the change to make it so that it's not, you put it down on the turn that it's supposed to be stalled. It's really goes into everything that the buff mechanic is trying to do, and what's unique about this game is you really have to line up your turns for a really powerful swing turn, and having it, you have to like wait a turn and think turns like 3 or 4 turns out as you're laying these cards in order in succession. That the change to this card really goes into that mind state where putting it on the next corner really means you have to think about your turns, the way you're playing them out, so that everything is rotating on the right corner the way you want to do it. It really just brings the card's IQ level up a notch. In my opinion, it already has burn, so yes, that was a big change to it and all that stuff. But yeah, putting it on the next corner is one of those things where you really have to think about when is the best possible time to put this on the corner so that it rotates onto the turn you actually want it to stay, as opposed to just putting it out on the turn you want it to stay out. And then, of course, like I said, it gives your opponent a chance to do something to it. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with this. That it wasn't a necessary change, and we're not going to see it come back into play for a few months. But I do like the change to kind of play more into the uniqueness and the way the buff mechanic was meant to be played, where you really have to come into its own and really have to think about a lot of these turns. Fatal Stuff is like, I don't like the change. Wait a second. I can do stuff with this. I like the change. Taming the Earth. Now, once again, this card, it's so... So the change was in payment. Before it was 2 earth and a crystal, now it's 2 crystal and an earth, which I personally love, because whenever I was building these location style decks, the crystal was always the one that I had the most of. So changing the payment on this will actually make this a lot more easier to lay, especially in a location buff deck where all like 90% of your locations are earth cards, meaning you actually want to put those on the buff field before laying this combo. So changing the combo payment, I actually like about this. It makes this card a lot more easier to play, and if all you're getting is just drawing power out of it, you want locations to be on the board. So having those crystals to pay for it is going to make Taming the Earth a lot more viable to run in these, as the payment will be a lot easier to do without holding a lot of your location buffs back. So I like the change. I like the change in payment. Also, we're seeing a lot more powerful crystal buffs come into play with these double crystals. So I appreciate the change to Taming the Earth. Yeah, I've used it in Edda as well. I've used this in Edda, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I like the crystal payment over Earth. Like I said, especially with all the buffs that are better for Earth. And now Opal the Everlasting. He looks very similar to... Was it just a health change that he got? Yeah. So he got 2 more health. He was already a pretty fun and unique hero to run. Giving him more health, I don't think it's going to change too much about him. People are still going to only want to run him in more slow your opponent down against a lot of the combos. They're going to have a lot of those, like if you're below certain health, their combos are increased. A lot of those... oh, is it she? Yeah, no, the art does definitely signify a female. Is now more of a tech card than tech cards. It's kind of true. It really is kind of true. But yeah, Opal, she definitely is still going to fit the same style of deck. That the health increase, I'm sure they're just doing a lot of these health increases with some of these cards because of the way damage is being increased on action cards, that they're trying to balance out hero health so that these heroes are not going to die as quickly. So just giving them a few more health but giving a lot of action cards more damage is their way of balancing it out a little bit. So, I mean, the card didn't change. You get 2 more starting health, which is fine. But it means that getting down to here, it could be a little difficult at times because you want her health to be low, and if her health starts high, you might not get to that point. So I don't know. I think the change is fine. Now this one got 4. This one got increased to 4 damage, which is insane. This card really wasn't used in nature a whole lot because in nature you were laying down buffs, you weren't really attacking. But now putting this at 4 damage with a way to restart it. Sorry, guys. I'm always yawning in the morning, but I'm awake. It's like my mind is awake, but my body's just like, hold on, give me like 5 hours and then we'll be fine. But giving this 4 damage and a way to restart it is really powerful. It's nature's way of the Umbron in Crystal that restarts just every turn, or every time it gets to that 4 damage. But Bramble Spike Hunter, I think, is going to have a really fun spot, especially now that we're getting a lot of powerful attack cards in nature. Intake more oxygen. Start inhaling really loud in the microphone. I'm sure that's great. I'm also talking a lot, which is like exhaling a lot of oxygen. So maybe it's just me talking too much. I'll be very quiet from now on. No, I'm not. Oh, it's in sync now. Awesome. I don't know what happened, but that's great to have. Maybe my mouth is just moving so fast that the words seem like they're doing it, and I'm still looking like a Japanese anime. But Bramble Spike Hunter, I mean, this card is going to be actually seeing a lot more play now that we're getting some really strong nature attack cards, especially in the insect order. That I do think that Bramble Spike Hunter is going to see a lot more play, whether it be the fact that it's now 1 damage or that just we have a lot more. The Bruce Lee of the month. That's me. But yeah, I think Bramble Spike Hunter getting the damage increase will help balance it out a little bit more. For nature, if you are running a more attack heavy deck, that the buffs you're going to see slim and not as much, but having 1 deal more damage than it would, I think Bramble Spike Hunter is a great way to get the buff that it deserves to an already good card in nature, in my opinion. Call of the Wild, now Essentially does 1 more damage. Before it was 3/3/3. Still same thing. It's just when it comes in, it does 1 more damage. I still used Call of the Wild when I played it because it was 2 animal and a lot of these aggressive decks. It was a really nice payment for other things. That Call of the Wild getting 1 damage increase here, I don't think it's going to change too much about it. If you were running it before, you're still running it now. You're obviously running it in a very beast-centered deck. But yeah, I Call of the Wild is fine. Not too much change, just a little bit more damage. Spore Feeder. Now, Spore Feeder doesn't give you +2 to healing anymore. Fatal Zeph. No, burn cards cannot be rotated back. They can be rotated forward, but not backward. I learned that because of the nature card that allowed you to manipulate beasts. The biggest thing that I saw, and a lot of people saw, was you lay Thunderslug, then you lay that Mossfoot that spins a beast forward once and restarts it. You can't restart or rotate back burn buffs. But yeah, Spore Feeder now, heal equal to the number of buffs you have in play. It no longer gives you a +2. So this is it's strictly a nerf. But Spore Feeder is still a really powerful card. In all senses, this is a essentially a... There goes my Tempo Meddler out the window. I apologize, man. I apologize. But yeah, essentially Spore Feeder is like a conditional Soul Thief, where you have to have the buffs in order to get the 4 healing out of it. But I think Soul Thief is now down to 1 damage. So, in a sense, Spore Feeder is going to fit only into those decks where you have a very wide buff-centric board. Otherwise, we do have a lot of other forest cards out there now that do have 3 or 4 healing attached to it. So, having Spore Feeder in a deck that runs very wide board heavy buffs is a great heal. If you're not running that, you'll probably want to choose the ones that just have a base of 3 or 4 healing and do something else. That's a really nice balance of how to separate these healing cards out from one another. Because if this did have just a +2 healing, this card would be probably the best healing that nature still had in the game. Because if you had 1 buff on board, it would have 3 healing and 2 damage, which is just insane for 1 buff. I do think that the change to it is a very good change, very healthy change to the card, to make it so that Spore Feeder is not always the best one to do. To always include in your nature decks. You're going to want to include it in only a buff-centered nature deck, not especially we're now, like I said, we're getting these attack cards. In a more attack-centered nature deck, that's the one that you're probably not going to run Spore Feeder in, which is fine because you should be able to swap out cards fitting the playstyle of the deck. Hive Bark now moves the Insectoids cards to the bottom of your deck instead of just shuffle back into the deck. I'm okay with the change. I don't think it actually needed to be shuffled back in. I'm okay with putting them on the bottom. Mostly because when I look at the insects now, I'm thinking of the self-mill. So my deck is going to be empty regardless. So when I use this ability, putting them back in the bottom, that's my deck. That's the new... It was always bottom? Really? I'm going to look at this. Was it always the bottom? You're right. It was always the bottom. It was always the bottom. You are absolutely right. So he got 1 more health. So he just got a buff. Never mind. I'm losing my mind. I always played Hive Bark and I always just assumed it was just shuffle back into your deck. Never mind. I've gone completely insane. He got 1 more health. In my opinion, Hive Bark is still one of the best insect-type heroes. I'm sad that he's going to set 3, because he won't be used. He won't be able to be used in the new launch of the new sets, because he's going to be in one of the rotated sets out. He was actually the hero I really wanted to build my insect self-mill because he had that ability. I'll have to find... Probably the Hive King is probably what I'll be able to use so I can get insects to my hand out of my deck. But yeah, Hive Bark just got a health increase. That's fine. That's fine. In my opinion, still probably the best insect hero out there to date, just because Graveyard Recursion is so powerful that we'll have to see. We'll have to see if Hive Bark is better than a Hive King. But I still love Hive Bark. I still love him to death. I really do. The 1 health just makes him slightly better. Citadel Musician lost a corner. um, which balances it out a little bit. It now fits more into a lot of the other ones that are damage increasing. Hive Queen is Axie. Ixa is the king. And I think Ixa is the one that I'll be playing because that one moves cards from my deck to my hand. And I'm a fan of that, especially my self-mill archetype that I really want to build. Nature doesn't last long enough to make use of his ability. You know what, Mud Turtle? I'll prove you wrong. I'll prove you wrong, man. I will last long enough to make it. As long as I get 1 or 2 cards out of it, that's where I'm okay with. That's where I'm A-okay with. You guys can all sit there and play your Axie decks. Me and Ixa will be amazing, okay? That's what we'll do. Me and Ixa will be amazing. Settling Musician, it did get a nerf. It lost a corner here. I don't know if I like it or not. I mean, I thought it was fine with 4 corners. It was just 1 increase to damage and healing. It's not like it's X2, X2. I do think this is now a little worse. It's still going to be nice to play in nature because with a lot of their cyclical damage, it now runs very similar to the Dread one that now starts with an X and then goes 1/1/1, where this one now starts with 1, but at the same time, a lot of nature's buffs are like at the start of your turn or at the start of your turn. So you are going to get use out of the first corner above anything else. So that's why this one didn't get an X at the first one, which I'm okay with. Lurking Horror, that's the one. Or X112. I forgot now Storm Shaman is back. Is it back? Or is it in the rotated set? But yeah, Settling Musician, I mean, I think it's still going to be run. It's just, I thought it was fine with 4 corners. I really did. I didn't think it was too oppressive, too broken. But having it 3 probably helps it somewhat balance out with the rest of the ones, like Storm Shaman, like the Lurking Horror, like the Observatory, all the other ones that are damage increasing for the other orders. This one does fit. It feels nice for nature in the way that it does its damage and healing increase. It probably just without the 4th corner, it feels more balanced compared to the other ones. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of changes, so everything is changing in its own way. Angered Shockfin obviously is now no longer a constant buff out there or a permanent one. It has 3 clunky corners. I think the damage got increased from 2 to 3 now, which helps kind of balance it out for it only having 3 corners. But I think it's actually a nice change for Shockfin. Shockfin was moderately abusive in the sense where you could get it to trigger like 5 or 6 times in one turn, where now it doesn't feel as bad. Like I said, they're changing a lot of these constant permanent buffs to more clunky corners, so they're not just so strong out there. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Wrangler. It should just say rotation damage. When one of your targets expires, it just says deal 3 damage to them. It's probably a typo. They probably increased and then added the clunky corners, but yeah, they should say rotation damage to them because this damage can be increased. So I don't know why this one. It's probably, hopefully, a typo on the card. Benny said it was a typo. Perfect. Well, there you go. There you go. Thank you, Rocket Star. Bubblefish doesn't prevent as much damage before, but it has an amazing second condition where it reduces your combo costs. Oh, just by 1, not by the rotation. But still, a Bubblefish down and then having a 2-cost combo only cost 1. This is insane. I think Bubblefish is really good. I do think it's probably still one of the best damage prevention ones. And now the Bubblefish reduces your combo costs. It's also great to splice into other orders for water and just put this down and have a lot of other combos reduced by 1. Yeah, Ushi with this. Like, I don't think they understood just how strong this was. This could have said reduce your 4-cost combos by 1, your 3 or 4-cost combos by 1, but instead just reducing your combo cost by 1. I actually think Bubblefish got a major increase. And everyone was using it for its major damage reduction of 2-3-3. It was one of the best ones. But now it's reducing your combos. That's... I think Bubblefish actually got an increase, not a nerf. I play this combo for no cost. Yeah. No, yeah. And it's in the core set. It's in the core set. And yes, you can reduce combos down to 0. Yes, you can. So you can just lay the combo for free. And if you think about this, we actually got... there was a new combo for water buffs that if you lay 1 Bubblefish down, that 1 combo is reduced by 2. It's like 3 lightning and a water or a storm. I don't know what it's called. It's in one of the new ones that was revealed recently. But yeah, 1 Bubblefish makes that combo 2 less. That's ridiculous. That is jumping lightning. There you go. Yeah, jumping lightning. 1 Bubblefish makes it 2 less. That's insane. That's insane. I think Bubblefish, they might need to word it down to like 4-cost combos by 1. Because that's just so strong. That is just so strong. Soaring Scout got the same treatment that the Shockfin did, where it's not every air buff, it's just the next 3 air buffs, which is actually fine, because if a Soaring Scout and another Soaring Scout, this doesn't have unique. You could Soaring Scout and then do another Soaring Scout. When this rotates, it'll trigger the other Soaring Scout. That's just so nuts. You could still have some really fun Soaring Scout memes going on here. That especially with the new Sora deck that we're getting. I think Sora with Soaring Scout, mind you, you're probably going to have to wait it is in set 1. That could just be ridiculously fun to do with Sora. Is a Sora Soaring Scout deck, a Sora Scout deck, if you will. Could be a lot of fun. It only reduces 1 for each water buff you have in play. Exactly. And then if this is a water buff that's in play that also reduces your combo costs by 1, Bubblefish reduces that by 2. Because it's a water buff, and it reduces it by 1. I'm getting Awakening vibes. Every reduction is strong now except Mountain Fort, and to an extent Moss Ridge. Yeah. No, it's so strong. Remember that it's a 9 damage combo, though. True. And I'm thinking of that card, the way I'm thinking of it, is you're only going to run it in a water-heavy deck, right? Water-heavy. Cleansing Wind is a 3 cost for 7 damage. If that 4 cost can be reduced down to 1 or 2, that's a 2 cost combo for 9 damage that pays, in a sense, as if it were a 4 cost combo for other combos. So it's a really strong combo in a certain style of deck. But yes, it is only 9 damage. But if you could pay 1 for it, a 1 cost combo for 9 damage, that's fine. That's fine for me. You're not going to run it in every deck, but in a water heavy deck, you're going to love that combo when you can lay it for free. When you just put it down, all right, 9 damage. I'll draw a card. Go. That's better. That's, in some senses, the way they're doing action cards now could be better than just 2 action cards. People, Astral and Dread are the strongest orders. And then Malia now. Increased damage from your combos by 1. Did she get a health decrease? Is that what Malia got? Yeah, she's now 29 instead of 30. So not much of her changed. Other than her health. Astral and Dread are the strongest orders. Storm. Just hold on. Hold on a sec, okay? Colax. I want to say Colax got a health increase. Yeah, Colax went from 30 to 31. So not that much change for Colax. Still trying to figure out what deck he really belongs in. Discarding the top card of your deck really makes you want to splash Astral in this so you know what your top card is. But I'm still trying to figure out... Oh, yes, and now it can be increased. Now it can be increased. Thank you, Rocket Star, for that nice addition. Is this damage can now be increased, which is actually really good. to have an ability to be able to increase damage so that when you discard a card, it could be 3 or 4 or 7 if it's a combo. That's really strong. And Colax might actually see more play now just because of that. So, if you were to accept Astral, hey, look at my cool new cards. You excited to play with me now? Yeah. No, I mean, the game is going to change so much. Blasberg Defender, it went from 2 to 1, which is fine. I don't understand really why it was 2 in the beginning. I don't. It's going to be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So that feels a little more nicer to it. Blast Shield, if I'm not mistaken, this went from 7 to 8. So the initial damage that it puts out is 8 instead of 7, which fits more of the 4-cost combo style. It fits really nice into the number of the 4-cost combo. And then it still has the two corners of damage reduction afterward. The Blast Shield strictly got an increase, and I think it was actually a combo that wasn't used a whole lot. But back then, Tech really wasn't utilizing buffs; they were all attacks. So, yeah, I think Blast Shield with the damage increase, it's not going to make it more viable to play. The only reason it's going to be more viable to play is because the entire game is changing, which is going to make it a better looking card for a lot more decks. Cradle Racer, I think this just got increased to 2, right? It went from 1 to 2. So on the second corner, it's a more damage increase. When this buff expires, take 2 damage and remove the buff to its right. That the damage increase on the 2 makes you actually want to get to that last corner and then utilize it. And then you can lay explosive cards to rotate it back. I thought it was always rotating back 1. I didn't think it restarted. Yeah, it always rotated back 1. It never restarted it. You could always lay 2 explosives in a turn and technically restart it. But yeah, the only change on it was this went from 1 to 2, which is in sense just to increase the Cradle Racer. It's more an incentive to get it to its last corner than to just keep it on the first 2. Dugout Sentinel. If you have a combo buff in play, draw 1 card and deal. So it got a buff where it's dealing a damage to your target if you have a combo buff in play. Before, Dugout Sentinel, in my opinion, I thought was really strong just to be able to draw you cards off your combo buffs. I can imagine what happens to this guy whenever this buff expires. Could be a lot of fun. But yeah, Dugout Sentinel now just deals the damage when you have a combo buff in play. So essentially, it's when you have a combo buff, it becomes a better insect swarm. If you don't have a combo buff, it does nothing. So Dugout Sentinel getting an increase, I think was fine to it. I think it was a much needed increase. I didn't need the 1 damage. I still would have used it for the card draw, but having it deal damage that can be an increase off the combo buffs really helps drive that archetype. It really helps drive that archetype of play combo buffs in Tech, and then you get a major advantage to having the combo buff on board. And if it goes away, well, then you have to get another combo buff out there. So that, and with the restriction of buff removal, you're inevitably going to get to the point where you will always have a combo buff on board if your deck is built to do that playstyle, where you're never going to feel like you'll never get it off because your opponent has so much removal. That I think the Dugout Sentinel, if it gets back into play, this archetype could be a lot of fun to play that combo buff centric Tech style, and then get a major. Remember when Tech played combo buffs? Nope. I remember when it played combo attacks and combo defense, and only those. And I think everyone else does. General Carnage. Now let's just talk about the beauty of this change, where at the start of your game, move an item card from your deck to your hand. This is not before the game. Move it to your hand, and it counts as your starting hand. This is at the start of the game. So you draw your hand. Then you find the item and put it to your hand. It's added to your starting hand. It does not replace a card in the starting hand. By the way, we haven't got daily card changes today, so we could bug Benny for another 5. The unofficial. Oh, we could. We very well could. I'll let you guys do that. I don't want to bug Benny about it. Benny's a hard-working man, and it's a Saturday. I don't really want to bother him on a Saturday afternoon. But General Carnage, like, this is insane. This is insane how much of an improvement General Carnage got. I want to say his health decreased. 2. Yeah, his health went from 31 to 29, which is really funny because in a sense, it's saying, hey, at the beginning of the game, before the game even starts, you took 2 damage to get that item in your hand. Like, that's what the card is essentially saying. You start at 29, freshen, good morning, but you put an item from your deck into your hand that does not count as a starting card. And General Carnage, being the person who wants to equip items, is just so strong. It's just so strong that I love the change to General Carnage. I do think the health is going to help it too, where going from 31 to 29 will actually matter, but having a guy start with an item in the hand, that's just so powerful. That's so strong. And I think General Carnage is going to be a much sought-after hero, especially now that he's in 7 and he's staying in the rotation set for a while. I think people are going to really build some amazingly fun General Carnage decks. Oh, did someone just put this one out here? Yeah, okay. And then Howlock the Founder. At the start of the game, move a location card from your deck to your hand. I believe this is the same. Yeah, so his health got decreased by 2, but the location card does not count towards your starting hand. Same treatment that General Carnage just got, where it doesn't decrease or it doesn't include in your starting hand. You get an extra card that you choose, which is huge. That is so huge that I'm actually fine with that change. I'm actually A-okay with that change for losing 2 health, but literally getting a tutor at the beginning of the game for a specific card will really help kind of make this hero build a certain deck around him. It'll build a certain deck around him where you're going to want not him in every deck, but build a really strong deck with him, like Mud Turtle did with the original Howlock. That guy's just so good. I love the change they added to it. I think it's a much needed change to those heroes.